of White Labs, an e-commerce internet marketing agency. Today's guest is Alexander. Alexander, feel free to let our viewers know a little bit more about yourself and share your background.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Stephen, for the intro, and great to see you. So I have a fairly diverse background. I was originally in college. I dropped out and decided to venture in the realm of special operations. So I was a Navy SEAL for 10 years,
Awesome.
and then immediately leaving the Navy SEAL teams, I went right into cybersecurity and was responsible for building out the kind of the new Navy Marine Corps internet system. So it was everything from deploying computers to building out data centers to their cyber response capabilities, systems, technology. Dove right into technology. And then shortly after that, Afghanistan happened. And so I went and contracted and worked for a government agency and deployed for almost 3 years in Afghanistan. And then had a son and quickly decided that I couldn't, I want to be part of my son's life. So that, deploying overseas, being a soldier running around wasn't really a life conducive of raising a family. So, I then was hired to manage the cybersecurity and risk management program for one of the largest energy companies in the world. So that my responsibilities encompassed three different companies, and that was managing all the risk management infrastructure, everything from audit to compliance to legislating privacy laws to I worked for National Institute of Standards and Technology to help them develop their ISO risk management framework, to also helping Obama and Senator McCain drafting their cybersecurity policy for the United States. And then shortly after that, I got hired by a company up in Los Angeles called Mercury Holdings. I was hired as the senior vice president of their mergers and acquisition division. So my job was really to actually acquire companies and technology and turn it into a global company. And so I was responsible for three major projects. I ended up leaving that and started a clothing company with my brother and sister a number of years back that's still up and running. It's called Nicholas K Clothing. Which started as a high growth company, but then turned more into more of a lifestyle company. And that was kind of decisions by, my spouse's brother and sisters and the way the line was designed. And I decided at that point that wasn't for me. I didn't want to have a lifestyle company that just paid the bills. I wanted to have a high growth company. So then I started Opt2 Labs. So I have a very strong business background, but I didn't have a background in clinical nutrition or nutrition for that matter, other than the fact that I was a consumer of it. So I spent the better part of about 2 years doing industry research, reading medical journals, scientific studies to decide on what type of protein we wanted to create. And that took the better part of 2 years, which encompassed research and then product development. And we officially launched our products in 2014.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the background. So can you tell me more about the brand and the products?
Yeah, so company name is Opt2 Labs. We have two brands. One is Protegold and the other is Frog Fuel. And I can actually show you here. So that's our Protegold brand and that's Frog Fuel.
Okay.
So Frog Fuel is mainly positioned as our active lifestyle human performance brand.
Okay.
And a lot of the reason for that is we are a clinical collagen protein. Collagen provides so many unique benefits. We actually started as one brand, but we found it very difficult to have just a static or dynamic website that, where the messaging was focused on human performance, but then we're also trying to target clinical professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we decided we needed to really separate the brands out, have a more industrial professional brand versus a more consumer driven brand.
Okay.
Again, Frog Fuel, human performance, lifestyle, it's everyday lifestyle. The thing that we like to say is that we move at the speed of your lifestyle. Our products come in these little unit dose packets. It's pre-mixed, ready to drink. Reason we did that is because we believed, the world as we know it now is changing. We're always on the go. And people don't want the inconvenience of having to carry around bulky powders and mixing them in a shaker, shake it and drink it, because that's really controlling your lifestyle. You have to make the time to actually be able to do those things. Whereas we wanted to have a product that actually was part of your lifestyle. You could take it anytime. You could put it in a purse. You could put it in a car. You could put it in your travel luggage.
Make,
That's Frog Fuel. Protein Gold is our clinical brand, and we use that for the treatment of about 14 different medical indications. And that product's currently available in 8 countries right now.
awesome. And where can we buy the product?
So we don't have intentionally, we don't have a big retail presence.
Okay.
We've been focused very much on the direct to consumer model.
Okay.
Protein Gold, you can pretty much get, I mean, we're in well over 8,000 medical facilities. So this would be something that a doctor prescribes for post-surgical wound healing, for somebody who's a diabetic, or somebody that's in a nursing home. Frog Fuel, you can get on Amazon. You can get on frogfuel.com. We are in a few specialty boutique retailers, high-end retailers like Central Market, HEB, and stuff like that. And we will be available in more this year because we actually did start implementing our retail strategies. We'll be available in, I think, about 500 or 600 more doors within the next few months.
Awesome. You touched on it briefly. Who is your target audience?
That's so again, that depends on the brand. Frog Fuel, amazingly, I would say our core demographic is 30 to 55.
Okay.
But then we also have a strong demographic of younger individuals. So we have children down to 8 years old, all the way up to 20 years old taking the product on the Frog Fuel side, because it is safe for children, and kids these days participating in sports want the best products, and so either the kids are buying it themselves, or more times than not, it's a parent saying, hey, is this safe for children? Can I buy it for my kid? It's my daughter playing lacrosse, or my daughter doing this, or my son doing this. So it's pretty broad. I mean, it really goes down from 8 all the way up to 65 plus, where I would say Protein Gold's primarily 55 plus. Okay. Somebody later stage in life, now experiencing joint pain, set of arthritis, who's probably going through something like a knee replacement or hip replacement surgery, or somebody who's a diabetic that has to deal with diabetic wounds, or something like that.
Awesome. What makes you different, or I know you got a lot of competitors out there, better than your competitors?
Yeah, that's actually pretty simple. I mean, first, we make our own collagen. So 90% of our other competitors out there actually source their collagen from the same company, which is overseas.
Okay.
It's part of the reason why we had zero supply chain issues during COVID. I mean, everybody else was struggling to get product. We didn't have that issue because we make everything here in the United States. So we have a high quality product. And the other thing that's very prevalent about our product is we nanohydrolyze our collagen. So what that essentially means is when people hear the word hydrolyzed, it's a marketing term people put on high quality proteins to make people think that the molecule of the protein is much smaller. And the psychological response that people have is, oh, it's smaller, so it must absorb much. But that's not really true. And that's why we distinguish ourselves from other hydrolyzed proteins and say nanohydrolyzed. To give you an idea, hydrolyzed can imply a protein molecule that's 22,000 Daltons in size all the way down to 1,500 Daltons in size. So a typical hydrolyzed whey or hydrolyzed collagen molecule is about 20,000 Daltons. Why that's relevant is because the pores in the digestive system can roughly absorb a molecule that's 4,000 Daltons or smaller. So what that means is if you're taking other proteins, is the enzymes in your mouth and the acids in your stomach have to break down that protein molecule numerous times before it can be absorbed in the bloodstream. Yeah. And we actually designed our product to be immediately absorbed upon, putting it in your mouth. And that's one of the huge differentiators. We're proven for 100% digestibility within the first 15 minutes of taking the product.
Great. What are some successful activities you've done to promote the brands?
Yeah, I would say much like anybody else, product seeding is a big part of a marketing strategy this day and age. Influencers, obviously, is another part.
Of course.
And we tend to look at what we call micro influencers, which is individuals with 50,000 or less followers, because we find that influencers that have significantly more followers really don't have a lot of credibility amongst their audience. And so, when they're pitching a product, the actual response and conversion rates are very low. Whereas if you have somebody that's a micro influencer, the engagement response rates tend to be much higher. So product seeding, we do obviously a lot of digital marketing. We have brand ambassadors that are promoting the products. As it relates to product seeding, that's really about getting in, getting product into what I call nano influencers, because micro 50,000, micro for us is really about, anywhere from 8 or 10 to 50,000 followers, where nano influencers are much smaller than that. And so we typically will send out free product for them to do a review,
Mm-hmm.
unbiased review, and obviously we'll coach them on the key talking points if they like the product and what we pretty much would like that message to be.
Awesome. So most of our listeners are entrepreneurs like yourself.
Mhm.
What are some challenges you've had in the past few years, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, for me, just coming from a SEAL background, one important lesson I learned in life is not to be reactive, be proactive. And so inevitably, when you see something potentially changing in the industry, you need to kind of rethink your business model. And what I mean by that is we know that retail is largely suffering because of e-commerce. These
Mm-hmm.
big box retailers are going out of business. And what we're starting to see now is a lot of lobbying around changes in privacy legislation, which obviously has a direct impact on digital ads, right? Because the technology is not allowing us to be able to capture certain consumer information to do great targeting and segmentation. So the effectiveness of the ads are going down. And we're already starting to see some indication of that. But, obviously, one of the things we're very concerned about is the potential changes coming down the road and how it's going to affect e-commerce activities in general. So because of that, we're actually looking at different ways. We're looking at more traditional, more organic ways of marketing that people have just said, we don't want to do that anymore. We actually think there's an opportunity there for things like mailbox coupons and stuff like that. And the reason for that is if you look back, 10 years, I'd go out to my mailbox and it'd be full of just junk mail,
Of
like
course.
coupons and
Yeah.
discounts. I go out to my mailbox now and I might get a coupon once a week.
Yeah.
And so it tells me that there's a tremendous opportunity there to revisit traditional marketing techniques to potentially deal with changes in privacy legislations that affect digital advertising.
100%.
But going
I agree with
Yeah,
that
go
because
ahead.
I had one coupon in my mailbox the other day and I
Yeah,
used it. I used it.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah. Because you're not getting saturated by something.
exactly, yeah.
You actually take the time to look at it and say, okay, is
It's
it?
not just, it's,
Yeah,
you're like, wow, okay. Yeah,
yeah,
100%. I see that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, in challenges we've had, I think the biggest challenge for us is really scaling, because the entrepreneurial journey is generally unique in that a lot of times if you're getting a company off the ground with your own capital, the team that you're building are really friends or people
Hmm.
that are not necessarily experts in the industry, or not necessarily the people who can actually take your company to the next level because they just potentially lack the experience to do that. And so our biggest challenge is we've gone through three very significant changes in our teams. And one of the reasons I'm actually hiring a new chief marketing officer is my current chief marketing officer is phenomenal, very good with online advertising, but he himself came to the conclusion that he was not the right person to take this company to the next level. He pretty much, you know, we had a great conversation. He said, listen, I feel like I've done everything I could to get you here, but I don't have the experience for you to be successful in the next 4 or 5 years. So, my point is that's one of the harder things to do
Yeah.
is you know, he's great in the fact that he realized that and came to me and offered up that, hey, I'll resign. You just tell me when. I don't care if it's 3 months or 6 months. I'll help you onboard a new person. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario is when you have somebody like a co-founder who doesn't want to admit they have a skill set gap and they don't
Hmm.
want to leave. And
Yeah.
then it turns into a lot of turmoil. Scaling, I think, is the biggest challenge for us. And of course, we manufacture consumer products. So capital is always an important, having access to capital is very important for us because we have to produce inventory. And just to give you an idea, our month over month growth rate has been about 10% for the past 3 years every month.
That's good.
So a big growth, which means a big commitment in inventory. And in many cases, you have capital tied up into other types of activities. For us, we need to have access to capital to be able to sustain that growth rate.
100%. Speaking of growth, what is the future plan?
Future plan for me is just to be a global company. Kind of an inside little tip here. I think one of the challenges of doing business here in the United States, especially if you're working with distributors at retail, a lot of these private companies have become so sensitive to profitability and are not very good at process automation. So what they do is they look at their business and say, how do we increase profits? And so US distribution model many years ago used to be one in which a distributor would distribute products, but they would invest in a sales team. They would invest in promotional activities and marketing activities. They would actually do in-store merchandising for you. That doesn't exist anymore. They've gotten rid of all this labor force to actually increase profits. And the reason I mention that is because that's very different than working with distributors in the international market. In the international market, you're making the same profit margin, but international distributors are investing in sales teams, investing in merchandising, investing in product promotion and product branding. And so you're getting a lot more value in having that same type of relationship. So that's very important for us. We decided 2 years ago that we really wanted to focus on the international market and then primarily remain a direct consumer company here in the United States and not be dependent upon retail and distribution, and then really just grow our international footprint. One of the things I'll say is, COVID's the perfect example. I would argue that if our distribution platform was 60 to 70% retail, you probably would have been out of business, because back in COVID, you had these retailers saying, if you're a non-essential product, we're not going to buy your product. And so they pretty much said, if you're not essential, I don't care if it affects your business. And we decided, back when COVID happened, we really spent about 4 months looking at our business model and saying, and the core theme of it is we don't want another company to be able to dictate to us whether or not we're going to live or not live.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we built out our future business model, our future business plan. Is we didn't want to have any dependencies, and we didn't want to have any specific channel that could dramatically influence the outcome of it.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about yourself, the brands, anything that I haven't asked you that you want our listeners to know?
No, it's interesting. I'm part of a lot of different entrepreneurial groups. So, I'm part of the Gathering of Giants. I'm part of EO. And so I meet with CEOs on a regular basis. And I think the core theme that I consistently hear that has to do with the struggles or challenges of a company or challenge of an entrepreneurial lifestyle is accountability. And many times what I find is if a company's struggling, it's because the entrepreneur themselves is not holding themselves accountable, either to health and wellness, to fitness, or not holding themselves accountable to being with their families. And it's the same core theme. And so the message I want to paint forward is, as an entrepreneur, it's absolutely imperative that you hold yourself accountable to the highest standards, and ultimately you're going to be successful. I can't tell you how many times I've gone in these meetings and people are saying same message. My family's saying to me that you're here, but you're not present. Or a CEO is saying, I've had this health goal that I want to be able to run and work out every day, but I haven't done it in 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is the same message over and over and over again. And so for me, one of the things that's, my New Year's resolution was accountability. And I have to work out 5 days a week. I have to run 3 days a week when I'm with my family. I have to be present. I have to set aside time and vacation time to actually spend it with my family. And I have one particular funny story out of accountability. I've really taken it to heart. It was about 2 months ago. I go to this trade show, and for whatever reason, I forgot my workout clothes. So I'm sitting in my room. I'm like, do I work out? Do I not work out? I don't have any clothes. And I just remember the thought that popped in my head. It was just hold yourself accountable. So I go down to the gym. I'm wearing my dress slacks. I'm wearing my workout shoes and a button-up shirt. And everybody was staring at me like, what the hell is this dude doing? And it was pretty funny because there was this one gal in there. She was on the running machine. She gets off and she comes up to me. She goes, I find it very impressive that you forgot your workout clothes and yet you're still down here working out.
Great.
Yeah. So, I think that's the important thing is self-accountability, because, an entrepreneurial journey is not one that's linear. It's always about, when things go right, you're always going to have something go wrong. And that's just the entrepreneurial journey. You just take it with a stride and you move on. You get over that obstacle and you go to the next one. But the most important thing, I think, is to look at yourself as an individual and hold yourself accountable to being that person you want to be.
Awesome. Well, your story, your brands, everything is amazing, Alexander. Thank you for coming on the podcast. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.